Members of the Federation of Liberian Youth, partners, the Liberian public, these issues strike at the very heart of our Constitution, and if not urgently addressed, threaten the credibility of the Federation's most important democratic exercise. Over the past several weeks, we've witnessed some serious procedural and constitutional breaches in the build-up of the General Assembly and elections of the Federation of Liberian Youth. The constitutional fly serves as the guiding framework for our governance and leadership, now in transition. Yet its provisions have been, in some cases, completely ignored. The timeline for the General Assembly and elections remains unclear and inconsistent with Article 9 of the Constitution, which mandates that the General Assembly convenes every 2 years. Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I think since the commencement of the Federation of Liberian Youth elections, this is my first time addressing the press directly, so I'll just go straight to the point. Fellow young people, esteemed members of the Federation of Liberian Youth, partners, the Liberian public, the Fourth Estate, as a presidential aspirant of the Federation of Liberian Youth, I'm compelled by duty and principle and conscience to speak to the troubling inconsistencies surrounding an ongoing electoral process. These issues strike at the very heart of our Constitution, and if not urgently addressed, threaten the credibility of the Federation's most important democratic exercise. Over the past several weeks, we've witnessed some serious procedural and constitutional breaches in the build-up of the General Assembly and elections of the Federation of Liberian Youth. The constitutional fly serves as the guiding framework for our governance and leadership, now in transition. Yet its provisions have been, in some cases, completely ignored. The timeline for the General Assembly and elections remains unclear and inconsistent with Article 9 of the Constitution, which mandates that the General Assembly convenes every 2 years and elections every 3 years. The current process has proceeded without adequate notice, consultation, or transparent roadmap, leaving member organizations and aspirants in uncertainty. Equally concerning is the flawed process of membership and delegate accreditation. Many legitimate youth and student organizations that have consistently contributed to the growth of FLA have not been properly notified or accredited in line with Article 7 of the Constitution, which calls for a transparent process of membership validation and delegate eligibility. The absence of such clarity risks producing a General Assembly that does not truly represent the diversity of Liberia's youth movement. Furthermore, there is an increasing evidence of political interference and bias in the current process. The overt involvement and endorsement of individuals with known partisan affiliations directly contravene Article 16D, which safeguards the political neutrality of the Federation. FLA must never be reduced to a political extension of any group or interest. It was founded as a unifying platform for all young Liberians, irrespective of political, regional, or religious differences. In addition, the Independent Elections Commission, which bears the constitutional responsibility to conduct a free, fair, and credible process, has not demonstrated the level of independence and transparency expected of such body. A fair electoral process requires confidence in the arbiters. When the confidence is lost, the legitimacy of the outcome is inevitably called into question. The Federation of Liberian Youth stands at a critical crossroads. Our generation must choose between upholding the Constitution and succumbing to manipulation, or upholding FLA's credibility. The credibility of the institution was built decades ago through youth advocacy and leadership. It cannot be traded for political expediency or personal ambition. We owe it to the thousands of young people who look up to this institution as their collective voice to protect its integrity at all costs. It is against this background that I note with deep concern the recent announcement of a 5-member advisory board by the President, Baneka Stephen Elliott, made in so-called consultation with the National Executive Committee. While Article 13, Section 2.1b of the FLA Constitution does not empower the President to appoint members of the advisory board, it clearly states that such appointment must be forwarded to the General Assembly for endorsement. The timing of this announcement, coming just few days to the General Assembly, amidst widespread constitutional breaches, renders it politically charged and constitutionally questionable. Without the endorsement of the General Assembly, the appointments lack legal standing and risks being perceived as an attempt to influence or legitimize a flawed process. Genuine institutional strengthening is not done at the height of electoral controversy. It is achieved through transparency, consultation, and adherence to the rule of law. FLA deserves better than politically motivated gestures disguised as reform. As a youth leader and reform-minded aspirant, I'm calling for the following: an immediate suspension of the current flawed process until all constitutional irregularities are corrected, the full publication of the updated roster and a clear communication of delegate eligibility consistent with Article 6 and 7, an independent review of the overall electoral framework by the Ministry of Youth and Sports to restore confidence since FLA has no board, commitment from all stakeholders to protect the neutrality and independence of FLA from political infiltration. As a committed aspirant and a lifelong advocate for youth empowerment, I reaffirm my unshakable belief that the Federation must be governed by its constitution, guided by fairness, and driven by inclusiveness. We must return to the principle that defines FLA: unity, transparency, and respect for due process. Anything less dishonors the trust the young people have placed in us. In unity, we build strength, and in integrity, we earn legitimacy. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, great. So with the 5-member committee set up by the outgoing president of the Federation of Liberian Youth, in line with some of the points you just raised, that it lacks the constitutional backing of the committee. So what do you think is going to be the way forward with this violation according to you?
Well, I think we should go back to the drawing board and review the overall process. So far as we've seen that the process is not progressing as credible as it should. The only body right now with the legal mandate to supervise what we're doing currently at the Federation is the Ministry of Youth and Sports. I think we need to go back. The Ministry of Youth and Sports need to call us to the table and review all these different processes. And as time will have it, we are hoping that we can resolve these processes and avoid any disruption, to the FLA General Assembly. I think this project should be stalled. I think this process should be postponed, if possible, cancelled, because everything that is happening now is not consistent with what the organic law that guides our institutional projects.
So as per the electoral guidelines of the Federation, you just went through aspirant verification. Has there been any list?
In fact, it might interest you to know that even the Independent Elections Commission has gone against their own guidelines. I do not know the motivation or the reason behind why the delay is this much, but we've not heard from them. We've communicated with them, we've communicated with partners, we've communicated with institutions, and we're yet to hear from them. I'm aware that they recently posted, they said they were reviewing complaints. I don't know to what extent that has reached, but as far as we're concerned now, we do not trust this process, and anything beyond what is constitutionally right will not be welcomed by some of us.
And what's supposed to be the election as per the electoral guidelines?
As per the electoral guidelines, the election is scheduled from the 24th to the 25th this weekend.
And up to date, there have not been any public list of qualified candidates?
There's been nothing. Can you imagine? Like, you have days to elections and you don't know who all is contesting, you don't know who all is going to vote. Like, how do you expect for the aspirants or the potential candidates to be prepared? So I think there's a lot that needs to be looked into, and for the sake of the image and the peaceful transition of this institution, the elections need to be postponed.
So as part of some of your inquiries made, have you reached out to the Ministry of Youth and Sports, the body responsible for all youth activities within the country?
Yes, indeed. I know we did communicate with the Ministry of Youth and Sports. My team communicated with the Ministry of Youth and Sports, and we're waiting to hear what step the Ministry of Youth and Sports is going to take.
What if the Ministry of Youth and Sports decide to play low to your inquiries? What would be your next course of it?
No, we'll definitely follow up. We'll follow up with the Ministry of Youth and Sports.
How soon?
As soon as possible. But we'll exhaust every legal and possible means to resolve these issues peacefully.
So what if the people still want to go on with the election, with all the electoral malpractices ahead of this impending fly election?
Well, we've not gotten feedback yet from the different communications and complaints that were filed in. Until we get feedback, we're going to speak to what will happen after. But we're exhausting all the different processes available to us.
So what would be your last word? Final message?
Well, we just urge our supporters to be encouraged. The process is not an easy one, but for us, we believe that the right thing should be done. We're not in a position of desperation. We're not desperate for contestation of our power, but I believe that if the federation should transition, it should transition in the right way. We appreciate everyone who served the federation to date, and we're hoping that in the interest of the young people of Liberia, we can transition peacefully, we can transition legitimately, we can transition constitutionally. Thank you.
Thank you.